He's the editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller. He is co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, and a lot of people don't know this. He is Beth Malone's understudy in the lesbian coming-of-age musical, Tony Award-winning Funhouse. Tucker Carlson, thanks for joining us.
That's so funny. I tried to keep it under wraps, but
Yep.
now that you mentioned it, I'm kind of proud of it, so thank you.
Yes, well, you should be. Tucker, there's so much to talk to you about. Let's start with the presidential politics on the Democratic side of the ledger. I just saw a poll out, a straw poll in Iowa. Wisconsin straw poll that actually shows Bernie Sanders within 10 points of Hillary Clinton. Is there actually some action behind Bernie Sanders just in terms of his message?
Oh, he has the message, the resonant message on the Democratic side, which is economic populism, frustration with the elite. Of course, the little versus the big. He himself is a Potemkin candidate. He's not a real candidate. He helps Hillary Clinton in the end because he makes her seem more moderate to a general election audience. I've always thought that, she had paid him in some way, given him a duffel bag of weed or something in order to go along with the charade. But the message, as distinct from the man, is absolutely a real message. And by the way, if there was an attractive candidate who could speak standard English, who was 30 years younger and female or Hispanic, that person would beat Hillary Clinton and get the Democratic nomination, no doubt.
So you have no doubt about that. You think that? Well, I saw a report out this week. I think Byron York wrote it that said that maybe Hillary's lead was not all as large as everyone had really thought it was. That maybe the statistics and the surveying had been an error.
Well, here's what I think. I think there's a lot of resentment in the Democratic ranks, not here in Washington, where everybody wants to be ambassador to Belgium under the Hillary Clinton administration. But I mean, in the rest of the country, among Democrats, there's resentment at the idea that she was imposed on them by elites in Washington, New York, and L.A., which she has been, of course. But you can't beat her with nobody. You need a real candidate to beat her. And identity politics is the basis of Democratic politics. So you can't beat her with a white guy. I'm sorry. It's not a party of white guys. They don't want a white guy. They're not going to nominate a white guy ever again. If you had a first, if you had like a credible Hispanic politician, if you had a credible female one, you could definitely beat her. Elizabeth Warren could beat her, I'm convinced, on the basis of ideas.
Lindsey Graham is now in the race. I think he became the 16th, is it? Running for the Republican nomination. And he was asked about the athlete formerly known as Bruce Jenner. And here was his response.
If Caitlyn Jenner wants to be a Republican, she is welcome in my party.
Setting aside the pronoun challenges in his answer, do you think this was a good way to go about this question? Is there any reason why Caitlyn Jenner shouldn't be welcome in the Republican Party?
Well, I think Jenner already is a Republican. I think she's a pretty conservative Republican from everything I have heard, including from someone who knows him. He's a fan of the conservatives in this race. I think there's an actual debate to be had about whether you can change your sex or not. There's actually not much of a debate. You can't. And I think it's worth it for, pundits and people paid to talk about this stuff to talk about it. But, Graham's answer is probably the only one you can give. Like, what, are you going to pick a fight on that? You know what I mean?
Well, it was a response to Dana Bash, who was saying there's a very popular Iowa talk radio host, and some of these Iowa talk radio hosts are incredibly influential for those caucuses, saying that the Republican Party needed to take a stand on what you just suggested, that you can't change your gender, and we're not going to buy into this media narrative that Caitlyn Jenner is anything but Bruce Jenner dressing up like a woman.
I think that's true. I think it's sad. I'm not at all against Jenner or anything like that. I think you could take a stand for science and say, reality matters, and the right is not the only group that denies science. George Soros, it's also the left that's into science denial. So, I think those are all interesting, real arguments. There's only one argument that's going to get you the presidency of the United States, and that is, I'm going to raise your wages. That's it. It's not about, I'm sorry, Republicans and Democrats, it's not about ISIS, it's not about Caitlyn Jenner. It's about the economy and the middle class, which actually has been shafted. That's real. All the numbers prove it. And so what are you going to do about it? How are you going to give me more take-home pay each 2 weeks? I don't know. I think that's the only message, and I'm not sure why nobody else seems to agree. I guess Maybe I'm wrong.
No.
But that's my view.
Meanwhile, the New York Times has decided that they should unleash their investigative efforts on Marco Rubio's driving record. And what they find is that from 1997 to today, Marco Rubio has had four speeding tickets. Well, his wife has had 13, but he's had 4, and they think this is a sign that the man is a borderline outlaw.
I've always had my doubts about Marco Rubio because of his positions on immigration and foreign policy. To be honest, this sold me on him. I'm married to a woman who hit a garbage truck twice in 1 year, and both times blamed the garbage truck. Someone who gets speeding tickets and then rips them up and doesn't pay them. I'm married to that woman. So, I'm serious, and I think it's been a huge advantage in my life to have an outlaw in my bedroom. And Marco Rubio clearly does too, so good for him. I actually liked it. Yes, I mean, of course, the New York Times is just like a kind of shell of itself. It's a totally partisan organ designed to help certain politicians and hurt others. It's pathetic, but actually it did backfire on them. Boy, they got hit.
They got creamed. I mean,
yes.
I actually tweeted out that I think that next the New York Times should spend its time focusing on that one incident in which Marco Rubio briefly stopped in the white zone without loading and unloading.
Did you read the paper? Every other story is about gay marriage. I'm not even against gay marriage, but like that's a topic that has a direct effect on like 1% of the population. And when do they cover the Federal Reserve or things that like affect all of us? It's so distorted by ideology, that paper. It's like a joke.
Yeah.
Although, as editor-in-chief of Daily Caller, you must be thrilled that if that's a big story in the New York Times, well, you've got plenty of topics to work with, I think, for the Clinton family.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
All of our pieces on pillow fights at women's colleges. I mean, that's we used to be embarrassed of it. No more.
Nor should you. Let me ask you about, you just said things that affect all of us. We saw the vote last week with regard to the Patriot Act and the new, what they're calling the Freedom Act, but it basically was the death of the NSA's data collection program as they had it, as Edward Snowden had revealed it, and as James Clapper had lied about it under oath. Was this the win for Rand Paul that the Paul camp would like to make it out to be, or are you of the mindset that this was actually not a great thing for him and he didn't actually get what he wanted out of it?
I don't know how it affects Rand Paul. I'm struck by how high his numbers are. He's beating Jeb Bush in certain states, which is kind of amazing considering, he's not considered as mainstream a figure. I just think I'm amazed by the hysteria around this on the establishment side, getting rid of government's right to spy on you in secret. Everything you do, that's going to, cause the fall of Western civilization. They couldn't point, just to remind you, to a single, not one, terror plot foiled by this program. They lied about it. They said there were many. When they were pressed, they couldn't find a single one. So, there's no evidence this kept us safer. There's a lot of evidence it violated our civil liberties. Why did we have it? I just think, again, this is another example of the people who run the party and the government in Washington have no real interest in the people over whom they govern. They really don't. I'm sorry to be like a crazed populist, but I'm reaching that conclusion because the evidence overwhelmingly suggests it.
Crazed populist Tucker Carlson, and
Thanks,
also
Tucker.
he's got a heck of a Broadway belt at the alto range. It's phenomenal. You really need to see his show over at Circle in the Square. Thanks, Tucker.
See you guys.